The 7-year hostage ordeal in Lebanon has ended. This week, the last remaining Western hostage, Terry Anderson, was released to American officials in Damascus, Syria. Terry, along with Thomas Sutherland, Frank Reed, Joseph Scipio, Edward Tracy, Jesse Turner, Alan Steen, and Robert Polhill, were hidden in war-torn Lebanon. 2 German prisoners remain. Joining us this morning to talk about this incredible news is ex-hostage Frank Reed. Frank, I can finally call you an ex-hostage, and
Yes.
you will now agree?
Yes.
Officially?
Yes. Officially today, I'm an ex-hostage.
How about
yesterday.
unofficially?
Unofficially, I'll still be hostage to that experience.
Will you?
The rest of my life, of course. It's so dramatic, and it does things to you that perhaps have changed my character a little bit, my personality, my view, my attitude about things.
You're very outspoken. You don't seem to be afraid to speak up on all of the issues. Can you finally tell the story of what it was like to be a hostage?
Well, I attempt to do that in a book I'm trying to write called Hostage Peace, and at the same time, when I can, get it together a little bit, I'll come back and see you and other people, and we'll talk about it. There are some things that I haven't told simply because I was afraid that I would hurt the people inside. They can be little things as simple as being in a room, the sliding glass doors are blocked with metal, but the way they build things there may be a crack because it's dry out and you can peek out. And if you peek and see an orange house across the street, and I would have publicly say in America, one hideout, there was an orange house across the street, and I had some people left that were with me and saw that orange house, still in captivity. That could harm them. Mm-hmm. Well, it goes from that extreme as to too many of us talk too much about ourselves, and I know too much about the hostages, some of them, and real things that no one really knows.
Some things that have come out this past week, so disturbing. Alan Steen, permanent brain damage, Scipio with frostbite and other issues that he went through, abdominal surgery and other things. How about you, physically?
Well, when I came out, I tried to escape 3 times, and I was beaten severely for that in the very beginning, punished. Well, you'd expect to be punished. I'm not saying
How were
I
you
accept
beaten?
It. Well, I was beaten in several ways. One way was, they have something in the Arab world called falak, which is, here in America we say, if you're a naughty boy, I'm going to spank your bottom. In the Arab world they say, we're going to beat your feet. This is called falak. The iron reinforcing, cement reinforcing rods we see beside the road, I had laid on my back feet up, my feet beaten and broken to the point that I can't walk long distances. I can't play in the golf course unless I ride a cart. That was done again 2 days later because I attempted to escape again a couple of days later. I've had both mandibles broken. I've had my nose broken. I have almost as bad as Alan, thank God I don't. I have something here they call a contra 2, which is from my brain being slammed against the side of my skull. Now, I'm pretty stubborn about my, taking medicine and stuff. I don't like to. And one of the things in the hospital, when they discovered this, and I've had every possible test there is, I've had 5 brain scans and, anything you want to name, I've had the test. And they said, we want you to take pills for epilepsy because you may have seizures. I said, no, I'm not going to have any seizures. I don't want any pills. I'm not going to take them. And I didn't. And I have not, knock on wood, have any problems with that. Alan seemed to be more severe. Mm-hmm. Alan was slammed very hard against the wall. I've had a man and 2 men come in with the grenades in their hands. And I counted while they were doing it. They beat me 40 times on this side of the head, 40 times on this side of the head. I've been kicked. In one hideout, I was double chained. I had chain here and a chain here because I was supposed to be very dangerous. I may try to escape more than anyone else. And if you're double chained in a very short chain and you're trying to eat, trying to even, relieve yourself, it's very difficult. Well, I could hear in the other part of the room, I knew John McCarthy and Brian Keenan were in another part of the building, and I could hear a guard talking to them. So I was eating a sandwich and going like this, trying to hear if it really was John and Brian talking. And a man was peeking and saw me do this, and they said, you're listening. And they came in, and one man drop-kicked on the bottom of my ribs, and my ribs came out like that on my skin. Now the problem was, what am I going to do about that? Because I never had a doctor in all the time I was in captivity. How am I going to? So I'd push them down, and I'd lie there, and then in the morning they'd come and they'd take you to the toilet. When I'd stand up, boom, out they'd come. If I sat down on the toilet, boom, out they came. So I spent about 10, 11 days worrying about puncturing of a lung or something like that. Finally, they're down. But when I was get out and I was 130 pounds instead of what I weigh now, you could see this big bulge, the difference between the two. Now when I sleep, it hurts. When I lie on it, still continues to hurt.
Were you taken at random?
Well, there's a couple of theories. Perhaps, maybe it's naive, but the irony of this was, you see, I was not working with Americans or expatriates. I was working with Arab children. That was the only reason I went there. I didn't want to work with American children overseas. I could do that here in America, work with American children.
You were teaching?
I was directing schools, organizing schools, developing schools for them. Now, in the morning, I said to my main man, Abbas, I said, gee, you know, this kidnapping thing's getting pretty tough lately. He said, don't worry about it. I went to the Hezbollah chief of police, and they said they'd never touch you. You know, you're safe, eh? So then I went up in my office, and I'd been hiding out on the Christian side for 6 months, 6.5 months, and I'd come over through the no man's land and managed to get where I was. And I went up to my office and came down, and I said, Abbas, you want to take me to my other office where the consultancy was? And Abbas said, I can't, because my brother was shot twice in the head last night and once in the shoulder by the Hezbollah in a fight between the Amal Shia militia and the Hezbollah militia. And he was a student in my school, incidentally, the boy that was shot. So someone else will have to take you. And so I got in a little school bus we had a panel-like thing, and I usually normally sit in the back so nobody can see me. I had my little tricks, I thought, to keep safe. This time I sat in the front. I went down to my other office. I tried to hem and haw. Will I go home? Will I go down the golf course and see my wife and son? Because I was leaving the next day to go back to the Christian side to give a workshop for 26 teachers. And I felt, gee, if I don't go down and see them, I haven't seen them for 6 months because they were living on the west side and I was on the east. I got to go down there. So instead of going home, which was about a quarter mile from my office, I started down through a more dangerous section of town. Going down, there was a road that went along by the sea, and I called it Car Bomb Alley because it was a road that was for 2 cars, but they'd make 4 lanes. And it was so blocked up that if they ever let a car bomb off, many people would die. I knew a shortcut. I said, let's take the shortcut. Over and back by the Chinese embassy, and I got over there. When I got over there, men had spotted me, evidently standing outside of my school bus, and my gold blonde hair and no mustache. I obviously wasn't an Arab. And cut me off, 3 gunmen, 3 45s, take me, slam me on the back, on the floor of the car. At that point, from there until the first hideout is where I tried to escape the first time. There was a gun on the seat. I tried to get that gun. And if I'd gotten that gun, I probably would have shot one or both of them. And
you might have been killed, too.
I might have been killed, too. And it's an interesting thing. When you say you're going to escape in the situation I am, and without being dramatic about it, we're talking about when a man's willing to give his life for freedom, because you don't know in the final analysis. When you get to the final exit, there may be a 1-stage escape, 2-stage escape, 3-stage escape. When you get to that last one, you may have to kill or be killed. I was prepared to kill. Brian Keenan was prepared to kill. The second time I tried to escape, Brian Keenan later on gave me the devil because I didn't come and get him because he wanted to go with me. On the other hand, I've been with hostages who wouldn't escape with me because they wouldn't kill, they said. And I said, fine, you come on out with me, and when we get outside, you go that way and I'll go that way, and we'll take our chances, if you like.
We have so much to talk about. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with Frank Reed. We're back with ex-hostage Frank Reed. Boy, it's so good to call you that, and it's so good that this is over. We saw Terry Anderson hugging his sister Peggy say it was a very emotional moment. What did Terry feel? Because you probably felt the same thing, driving to Damascus, knowing you're finally going to be free.
Well, I think it's a very emotional moment. You know, I got out, I was sick. I was full of arsenic, 55 pounds underweight, and I really didn't want to talk with anybody. And at the same time, when I would think of some of the concepts of what liberty and freedom is, and I had to speak about them, I would well up and actually couldn't speak. For a long time after that, whenever anybody would mention a John McCarthy or an Anderson, I would well up and think about it. Because there is a bond that will exist between us, even though it may not be the kind of bonding we think of in terms of friendships and lifelong friendships. If you think about this little social group that we're thrust into, you know, when we choose friends, we choose them on the basis of character matches or personality matches or looks or whatever we use to do this. We were forced into the social setting, and it could very well be on the outside we would never ever go into that social setting. I may not want to socialize you, I not want to be part of you. My bond with them, see, there are bonds of friendship, there are bonds of love, or all of this. My bonds with them was, when I got out, I had a great conflict with me. I was out before they were. They should have been next out. They were in 15. Did you feel guilty? Oh, I felt guilty. I felt the bullets in my back as I was going over the mountains in Damascus about this. Well, one of my bonds with them at that point was I have a duty and obligation to speak out. Speak out. I've got to do whatever I can. I have no conceit that I can move governments or I can move groups. Like,
and you've spent how much of your own money doing that?
I am about $75,000 in debt at this point in time. I had no sponsors sponsoring me going around doing this.
Whereas AP would sponsor Peggy Say.
Peggy Say was sponsored by Associated Press. I had no way.
So in a way, you really have been held hostage by just having to remember these men that you cared so much about.
Actually, it exactly what it is. It's just part of this bonding. Now, the rest of our lives, there will be a bond that we have similar experiences and memories and everything, but it doesn't mean necessarily a bonding of friendship.
You don't feel a very strong bond to the American government at this point. Are you glad you're an American?
Well, I'm glad I'm American. Sometimes, you know, one of the problems of coming back with this thing I call past shock, the sudden emergence of the past into the present, a lot of things change. It isn't just the rents that change and the cost of housing and the cost of automobiles. Also, values change. And often, you know, when you're away from the forest and you can see the trees, I often thought overseas, how is America changing? Have we lost certain kinds of values that were important to us, that were the part of the weave of this nation in the very beginning? And I come back and I look at it and say, have they changed that much? Not that I necessarily followed all those values or that moral code or whatever you like, but at least it was in place and I respected it. And we could, as individuals, make choices whether to follow that code or follow those set of values. So now I come back and I look at it, and I often say, I'm an American, of course, but I often say when I get out, I don't know if I'm an American anymore, because I don't know what Americans are anymore. When I think you're possessed with have an obsession with the possession of things. All I hear about is how, now you got 2 cars, and before you couldn't even have one. You have 7 credit cards. Before you had a hard time getting 1 credit card. What happened to the family? What happened to the sense of family?
Well, but you've openly criticized the Bush administration for not doing more, and we heard Terry Anderson thanking the Iranian government, and thanking the UN representative, but not thanking the American government. What happened, in your opinion?
Well, we had inside, Terry and I always had dialogues. We were on one side and Sutherland was on the other. We were against them for not doing anything. Certainly I was. I can speak for myself. Why aren't they doing anything? How can we afford to spend $65 billion on the freedom of Kuwait and not spend a penny on the freedom of Americans? That as freedom as we know it in Kuwait is not the same as freedom here in America. How can we do this? And don't forget, 2 of those countries, the ones we protected, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, have not paid their bills for that war.
But why do you think that the Bush administration didn't do more?
Well, I have kind of a mechanism, a screening thing I use when it comes to national politics and what the rhetoric is and what the hidden agendas are. And the agenda, I'm not an expert on anything, but for instance, I'll give you an example. How much involvement have we had, as Bush had, with Yugoslavia? The reason for that, in my opinion, is because there's no votes in Yugoslavia. And
so you think this is all about the Poles?
I think this is all. I think every national politician has such a supreme ego. It's just a high pumped ego. And he's always thinking about another election come another November. Now, Jimmy Carter, if you remember, and this is a beautiful man. I met with Jimmy Carter. We had decided to take a private initiative, and we're going forward with that before Paris de Cuellar got involved in it. And Jimmy Carter practiced what something I call yellow ribbon politics. He made a commitment. He said, by this date, I'm going to get those hostages out of Tehran. And he worked, and he worked, and he worked, and he worked.
Of course, he didn't get the credit,
but he didn't get them out. But he didn't get the credit, and he didn't get them out. Now, many political pundits will say he lost the election because of that effort. No one is going to get trapped, Reagan or any of them. But yet they say one thing out of one side of the mouth, and they do something in the other. Reagan, remember, for months said, I'll never negotiate with a terrorist or a terrorist nation. But Ali North and his boys under the table were negotiating. And then in his memoirs, Reagan comes out and said, after I got Weir, Jacobson, and Jenko, which was a Iran scam, out, here's a funny story. I was promised the final 2 hostages, Anderson and Sutherland. Well, the only thing wrong with that is I'm lying right beside Sutherland, and Anderson's across the way. I mean, the great forgetter, this kind of stuff. Well, that kind of rhetoric and that kind of I'm over here and yet I'm over here, I don't want to buy that.
When things settle down and the dust settles, will you come back?
I will come back. Love to.
Too little time, so much to talk about.
I want to say to your audience and you, Eileen, caring is love, and I love you for caring.
Ah, thank you, Frank. It's really good to see you.